Hi all, this is Linda and welcome to my channel. Today I want to do something a little bit different, and I want to go ahead and share with you some books that I've read throughout my journey that I found really helpful. Now there are tons of them. I am a pretty avid reader and I do like to read all kinds of different things. So there's a lot of spiritual books, there's a lot of self-development books, and some other books that are more maybe like novels but that have had a huge impact on me, even though they were more for entertainment. However, I've picked only like maybe 3 or 4, definitely less than a handful of books that I want to share with you because they had a pretty huge impact on me. Now, these are not the only books that had a huge impact, but I can't share all of them because there's just too many. So I'm just going to start with a few of them, and I just really want to share them because I think they may be helpful for most people. I find that these particular books have some information that is really applies, in my experience, it seems to apply to most people I know or most people in my circles. So I just wanted to share them with you in case they are helpful to some of you. So the first book that I want to start is In the Meantime by Iyanla Vanzant, and I'm going to put it here. Hopefully you can see it there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, I think most people know her because she was at some point, I think, a protege of Oprah, and she also had, or has, I'm not really sure, a popular TV show, reality TV show. I don't really know the name. I never really watched it. Maybe I've watched some clips on YouTube. But the reason why I wanted to share is because I found this book to be super helpful. Now, this was, I believe it's actually the first book that I read in my journey. So at the time that this book came to me, I had just gone through a breakup and my best friend got me this book, and I didn't read it. I wasn't really that interested in reading in general at that time, at that stage in my life, but I also was just going through a breakup and was really hurting, so I didn't particularly care about reading anything at all. So I just kind of took the book and put it in a shelf and totally forgot about it. And it wasn't until maybe like a year later, I don't really remember because this was, we're going back to over 10 years ago now. But I know that at some point I found it and I saw it and I was like, okay, let me just read that. And I found this book to be so incredibly helpful. Now, I do want to clarify, the book is called In the Meantime, and I think most people interpret this, and it's called In the Meantime, Finding Yourself and the Love You Want. And I think most people that look at this book think that it's in the meantime, as in the meantime until you find your life partner, or between boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever the case may be, husbands, wives, whatever. And yes, there is, the book is about that to some degree, but really, like the title says, it's finding yourself and the love you want. And what I found, or at least my interpretation of the book, is that it was really helpful it helped guide me on what to do through those transitions in my life. It helped guide me in, well, finding myself and developing myself, or starting that journey at that particular point in my life. So it wasn't really in the meantime until I find the next boyfriend, but it was more like in the meantime until you start developing and you start growing, right? So I thought it was a great book. And I did read it, like I said, it's been, I think, maybe 15 years now, but it was an excellent book for me. Now, I understand not everybody has the same taste in books, but I found it very helpful to me in my journey. My spiritual journey didn't start until much later, but this was one of the first steps along the way. This was more like the beginning of my self-help journey, I would say, and then my spiritual journey kind of started a little bit later on. But this is the first book, and by the way, I will put the links to the books in the description because I'm not sure, it looks like you can see it, but I'm not really sure because it's kind of yellowish orangey and it's kind of the same color as the wall, so I'm not sure how well you can see it here, but I'll put the Amazon links in the description, so if you're interested, you can read the description, reviews, and go ahead and buy them there. So the second book that I want to mention is this book here, is called Healing the Shame That Binds You, and it is by John Bradshaw. Now, I'm hoping again you see that there. Yeah, I think you can see that there. Healing the Shame That Binds You, and it's by John Bradshaw. This is a great book. Now, the disclaimer to this is, I believe the first maybe 3 chapters or so are quite dense. They're a bit hard to get through, but once you get past those, the information in this book is really essential. I mean, it really talks, the focus of this book is on deep-seated shame and sort of the shame that we kind of becomes ingrained in us through our family dynamics, and how that affects our relationships, our adult relationships, and how that creates all these patterns of codependency, addictions, and things like that. It is an amazing book. It is, like I said, the first few chapters are a little dense. I think they have a lot of sort of medical scientific information, and to be honest, I found them quite boring, but I got past that. There's something about it was interesting enough to me that kept me reading it. And once you get past those chapters, the information in here is invaluable. You can really tell a lot of it is highlighted and underlined. Most of it is underlined, so you won't be able to see it on camera. But there, I mean, like, there is markers everywhere. It's crazy, like, how helpful this book was for me. And it really helped me reframe my childhood. And there's a lot of things. It brought a lot of awareness as to the patterns of my childhood, the patterns of my family dynamics, and the impact that those had on me that I wasn't really even aware of. I sort of felt some of it, but I didn't really have words to put to it. I didn't really know how to verbalize it or how to even explain it to in my own head, to my own self. And this book is what helped me do that. It's what helped me put a lot of aspects of my childhood trauma in context. So I highly recommend this book. It's great. Again, I will put the link to all of the books in the description. And there is another book that I do not have here. I have since, like, in the last, I don't know, maybe under a decade, switched to Kindle, and I don't think I'm going back now. As much as I love the feel of books, Kindle is great because it's just so convenient and you can have tons of books in it. But there's a couple other books that I would like to recommend that I don't have images for because I don't actually have the hard copy. But another one of those books is Loving What Is from Byron Katie. And there is also a website, and I believe there may be, I don't think it's a TED Talk, but there's a few videos out there from her. And the website, which is called, I believe, thework.com. I will put the details in the description because I'm not really sure that's what it is. But it focuses on this sort of framework that she has for conceptualizing your beliefs, your thought process and your beliefs, and it's called The Work. And it asks 4 specific questions that help you really take a deep look into your belief system so that you can do some process work and figure out how that is impacting not just your life or your decision making. I will again include a link to the website and to the book in the description of this video. So the other book that I want to mention is, I sort of have an image here. I'm not sure how visible this is going to be because it's from my iPad, the Kindle app on my iPad, and it is called The Completion Process. And The Completion Process is a book by Teal Swan. Teal Swan is a spiritual teacher, and The Completion Process is a process that she developed, and it's mostly to do shadow work. It's process work for people that are on a healing journey. And when I say shadow work, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that. I've talked about it, I think, in another video, and I will probably talk about it quite a bit because it's something that, in future videos, because it's something that I'm really into, something that I really like, and that has proven to be very helpful to me in my life. But shadow work is a way, basically what we call shadow. I can't remember if it was, I don't believe it was developed by Jung, the psychologist, but I believe it's something that's been in native cultures for a very long time, but I think Jung sort of like repackaged it with a more scientific approach. Please don't quote me on that. I believe that's my current understanding, but I may be totally wrong because I've never really looked too much into the history about it. I know that Jung has something similar tied to the archetypes, etc., and that a lot of shamanic and native cultures use a similar process. And what shadow work is really the focus of shadow work is bringing the subconscious into awareness, into your conscious awareness. And the idea behind it, or the purpose behind it, really is this idea, which is something that I strongly believe, that you cannot heal what you cannot see. You cannot heal what is hidden. So by bringing a subconscious belief or subconscious memory or trauma into the light, right, from the shadows, which is the subconscious, into the light, into your awareness, into your conscious mind, you can then start to work with it and heal it, integrate it, etc. So the completion process, again, is a book by Teal, Swan, and it's a process that she developed. It is a process that it incorporates bits and pieces from a variety of different processes, like psychological process, or science, processes that are used in the psychology field, processes that are used in the shamanic fields, some things that she developed herself through her own journey, etc. And it puts it all into a really nice package. I actually did some certification training with her for this process back in September of last year. It's about, 8 months ago now, September of 2018. It was an excellent experience. The one thing I will say is this is not for, it's not a lighthearted process. It's a pretty hardcore, and a lot of things come up. But I personally find it to be a great process to heal trauma. It also includes some inner child work, a lot of different things that people who have been in therapy before, or who have been on this spiritual or self-development journey for a while, probably would have heard of already and probably would have worked with already. Great book, great process, so I highly recommend it. There is also a couple of videos online on her YouTube channel where she actually goes through the process with a few people, if you're interested in learning more about it. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the next book, and I'm trying to, forgive me, I'm just trying to see if I can find here the cover of the book so you can see it. Here we go. It's called Oneness, and this is arguably, but more than likely, my favorite spiritual book ever. I absolutely love this book. It is a beautiful book. Let me just open it here, so hopefully you can see it. It's mostly blue. It's called Oneness, and the name of the author is Rasha. She also has a Facebook page if you want to go look at that, and that's Rasha. Again, we'll put the links at the end in the description of the video. But it is an amazing book. It is very esoteric and ethereal. It's a little bit, with most people that are not in this field, it would probably fall in the category of woo-woo and lovey-dovey, right? It's this book that is very uplifting book. Now, the rest of the books that I have on this list can have some uplifting aspects to them, and they do help you feel better, right? Because they're all about healing and integration and all of that stuff. But they're hardcore books. They're books for people who are seeking, for seekers, for people who are searching, for people who are trying to resolve trauma, to understand their trauma and their life experience, and to heal and integrate that, right? So these books can bring up a lot of stuff for people. So for example, John Bradshaw, which is Healing the Shame That Binds You, which we talked about a few minutes ago, he also had I don't know if it was PBC, I can't remember, NPR, I don't know. He had a video series in the 80s, I believe. I was a child then, but a friend of mine has it, and I borrowed it from him. And a lot of the things that he talks about in the series are in this book, but he was talking about his work, and he mentioned that a few people that have read his book came to one of his talks and yelled at him and told him that he ruined their childhood. And the reason why people say that, right, is because most of us like to think that our childhood was peachy and everything was happy. And oh yes, I had a great childhood and I had all these toys and I played with my cousins. But the truth is that most of us experience trauma in childhood, if not all of us, right? And some people to varying degrees, some people more than others. But this is the type of book, right, that when you read, shit's gonna come up. So like I said, for me, there was all these things that were already there. It's not like it created anything. It's trauma and painful experiences that I already had within me. I just hadn't conceptualized them. I didn't have the language to explain what those emotions were, or how that felt to me, or what kind of or what it was causing, the trauma and the pain that it was causing in my life. And this book helped me put a lot of those pieces together. So again, most of these are not for the faint of heart. And I'm not saying that the Oneness book is, but it's more a book based on uplifting words. You know, it's a great book, and hopefully I'll be able to read a quote from this book for you, but it really is my favorite book. Interestingly enough, it's a book that I purchased. I couldn't tell you why I purchased it. I don't remember, but I bought it and I started reading it. And this was now probably going on 10 years ago. I started reading it and I was like, what is this? I thought it was so dense. I couldn't understand a word that was in the book. I found it super woo-woo, and that I couldn't understand what it was talking about. So I put it away. It was in my my iPad and the Kindle app in my iPad. So I kind of just, you know, pushed it aside and started reading a different book. For some reason, a couple of years after, and I want to say maybe 2013, it was 1 or 2 years after I first started reading this book, I took it up again. For some reason, I decided, well, let me just give it another try. Now, the disclaimer, the caveat is, at the time I picked up the book, well, not literally, because it's a but you know what I mean. At the time I started rereading the book again, I had already gone through a year or more of self-development and of a very painful spiritual journey. Arguably, you could call it dark night of the soul, right? So I was going through some, a lot of my trauma was coming up and I was having to deal with it. And so I've been doing a lot of work at that point, and then decided to take up this book again and reread it. And it all of a sudden, all of it made sense. Every single thing that I couldn't understand before, every single thing that I thought was too woo-woo and crazy and made no sense, it made perfect sense to me and resonated completely. So there is something to be said for when you read a book and it doesn't click with you. Don't throw, I mean, I don't even know if people have physical books anymore. I mean, I still do, but most of these are old. But, you know, don't throw it away or don't delete it from your Kindle or whatever you're using. Keep it, because at some point in the future, that may be an invaluable resource for you. It may just be that at that time you were either not ready or not open enough to receive the information. So these are some of the books that I have found very, very helpful. The other thing is, I also want to mention a book by Brene Brown. Well, actually, I'm not going to mention the book because, first of all, I don't remember the name of the book. But also what I found is that her TED Talk on vulnerability is, for me, it was a lot more moving than the book. So what I would suggest is for those of you who are interested in this self-help, you know, self-development, spiritual journey, particularly when it comes to the subject of vulnerability and revealing yourself, please go on YouTube and look for Brene Brown's TED Talk. Again, I will link it in the description of this video. It is an amazing talk. It is so inspiring, but it is also, it really resonated with me about what vulnerability is and how we can harness it. So I would highly, highly recommend it. But going back to the book Oneness by Rasha, I want to close this this video by reading you my favorite quote. I think of all times. It's certainly my favorite quote of this book. It's about a paragraph or two long, so please bear with me. But I just think it's such a beautiful thing. Every time I read it, it makes me want to cry of joy. So I just want to share it with you guys. So it is the first page of chapter 2, and it reads, "This is the first time in your personal history as an incarnate individual that your conscious awareness has been augmented with levels of energy that enable you to transcend your physical senses. This is the first incarnation in which you have been able to reinforce intuitive knowingness with experiential knowingness. This is the moment you have been waiting for." Oh my God, I still get chills, Jesus. This is the moment you have been waiting for eons of existence. For this is the lifetime that will catapult you beyond all you know to a depth of awareness and understanding you are as yet unable to fathom. Trust that this process, in which you are by now deeply invested, is unfolding as it is meant to, and that everything is indeed in divine order. Sorry, I get choked up every time I read that, and I get chills. It's just such a beautiful thing. And for all of us, for all those of us who have been on this journey, spiritual journey, self-development, trying to heal ourselves, whatever you want to call it, trying to heal ourselves and integrate all aspects of ourselves and trying to live a more joyful life. Reading something like this is just incredibly moving and incredibly encouraging and empowering. So this is, I would say, my favorite book. Arguably, depends on when you ask me, but most of the time I say this is my favorite book, but this is by far my favorite quote. So thank you for listening. I hope that these are helpful. Like I said, I will put all of the links to the books and the Byron Katie's The Word Process, as well as Brene Brown's TED Talk in the description. I'll put the links in the description. And as always, please feel free to ask questions in the comments if you have other questions about maybe other books, or if you want to share some books that you've read that have been really helpful to you. Please again put all of that in the comments. And as always, thank you, and we'll see you again next time. Namaste.